I'm not sure how to get that cool voice effect. How's it going, everybody? Welcome to the 4th episode of Classic Saturdays. I can't believe I'm actually making this series. It was just a random idea I had, and I never thought anyone would actually like it, but apparently you have, and here we are, episode 4. Today I will be covering the first two Sonic the Hedgehog games, Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Today I won't just be covering the games, I'll also be covering the story of Sega versus Nintendo just after the video game crash of 1983, so you'll get a history lesson. So yeah, that's what I'll be covering in this episode. On a more channel and personal related note, oh boy, well, almost at 200 subscribers at the time of recording this. We might be there by the time this is released, because in the previous episode I said we're really close to 150, and I was on 148, and then when I released it, I was on 177. So I'm pretty sure we might get to 200 before this episode's released, or after. So I'm really happy that you guys are subscribing and actually enjoying the stuff I make. I never thought anyone would care about my videos, but apparently people do, and I love you all. I want you to know that. You make me feel happy, and I hope that makes you feel happy. Without further ado, let's get into this episode, because I don't want to talk about myself, because that's not what we're here for, is it? We're here about Sonic. There is an extremely good chance that you already know who Sonic the Hedgehog is. If for some reason you don't, Sonic is this guy. Sonic is a hedgehog that can run super fast. Anyway, long story short, this hedgehog is one of the most iconic characters ever created, like I mentioned in the previous episode. Sonic first appeared in the classic game, Sonic the Hedgehog, appropriately named, which I will now review for you. Okay, go. Sonic 1, released back in 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog was Sega's smash hit on the Mega Drive. Or Genesis, please don't kill me. At its core, Sonic the Hedgehog is all about going fast around numerous different levels, or zones, to fight each boss and make it to the end of the game. This is a very basic formula, but there's something about this game that makes it so damn fun. Personally, I enjoy it because I love going fast in games. I've watched this video 5 times in a row, send help. And I also appreciate the game's difficulty. But there's something else too. The zones all have one endpoint, but there are numerous paths in most levels that you can take to end up at the end, making a repeat playthrough fun, as you might accidentally discover a new way that you haven't been before. Now, if you've watched this series before, you know exactly what I'm about to talk about. The sales start, the music. In all of the previous episodes, I've stated how I love Nintendo's music. Well, this game's soundtrack is certainly a worthy contender for my YouTube playlists. Tracks like the main theme and the boss themes stick in your head for ages. But who could forget the all-time fan favorite piece, Green Hill Zone? The music for Sonic the Hedgehog was composed by
Masato Nakamura.
Masato Nakamura.
What a cool person. Okay, Sonic the Hedgehog gets a review score of 7.8 out of 10. Pretty fun, but there's not a lot of story going on, and also a year after the first Sonic game came out, Sega followed up with Sonic the Hedgehog 2, which blew away gamers' expectations once again. It wasn't just Sonic this time, the game also featured Tails the Fox, who I don't like playing with, so I turn him off. This game had brand new zones while still retaining the same kind of feeling from the first game. You still go fast, the zones are still fairly non-linear, and the music is still awesome. As for new content, apart from the zones and music, this game is pretty much the same, with a few minor tweaks here and there. Also Tails. If I'm being honest, I actually prefer Sonic 2 over the first game. I don't know what it is, but I have more of a fun time with Sonic 2. Overall, I give it an 8.7 out of 10, which means on average I give the first two Sonic games an 8.5 out of 10. There's so much fun to both play and to watch people play, but most importantly, they showed Mario who's faster. Alright, picture this. It's 1990, Nintendo pretty much controls the video game industry after releasing the Nintendo Entertainment System, and they have an extremely bright future ahead. But a competitor appears, Sega. With the release of the Sega Genesis, or the Mega Drive, it had found exposure in the games industry, and was about to ride that exposure to dominance. Sega had a few tricks up their sleeves, like having more mature games like Mortal Kombat on their system, which allowed them to appeal to an equally mature and older demographic than Nintendo's family-friendly and fun approach. Sega also had another advantage. They had a heavily Western audience, while Nintendo's was more mixed between Japan and America, after the release of the NES. This started what is now known as the first big console war between Sega and Nintendo, Sonic and Mario. As I said previously, both Sonic 1 and 2 released to instant success, and Nintendo had lost this battle. After the 8-bit NES, Nintendo needed a way to compete with Sega's 16-bit console. This led to the creation of the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, with releases like Super Mario World and The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. It was a smash hit, and was Sega's first nail in the coffin, as a series of unfortunate events were about to unfold for Sega. Sega tried to team up with Sony to create the Sega PlayStation. Nintendo also did the same thing, but I'll talk about that another time. But Sega's engineers preferred to develop a console with a 2D approach rather than Sony's 3D ideas. They also tried to join with Silicon Graphics to use their technology for a new console, but talks broke down, and this also allowed Nintendo to use the company's technology in the Nintendo 64. I briefly mentioned this in the Mario 64 episode, but I'll elaborate it more in episode 10. Inevitably, Sega ended up creating the Sega Saturn, but it flopped in the US and was way more expensive than the Sony PlayStation. It was also harder to develop for, so most third parties would rather develop for things like the Nintendo 64 or the PlayStation. After this, Sega started to drift into the shadows, once the most powerful games company reduced to a third-party software developer. It makes me kinda sad. Although my favourite thing about this is how Sony came out of nowhere, failed to negotiate with both Sega and Nintendo, and then ended up releasing the best-selling console of all time, the PlayStation 2, and then releasing another top-selling console, the PlayStation 4. So the real winner out of all of this is Sony. Oh yeah, and also Nintendo didn't do too badly afterwards either. We don't talk about Microsoft yet. Patience, Xbox fans. We still have a few console generations to get through, episode 20 at the latest. On the 23rd of June 1991, the bombshell that was Sonic 1 hit the US. Wait, I probably shouldn't say that. On the 23rd of June 1991, Sonic the Hedgehog was unleashed upon North America. Europe and other regions received the game a month later. It was met with extremely positive reception from children and adults alike, and from this one game, Sega earned around $1.4 billion from then to now. Sega had done it. They had beaten Nintendo to the ground with Sonic 1 after it sold so well, an estimated 22 million copies to this day, and they were about to do it again a year later with their follow-up, Sonic the Hedgehog 2. It launched just over a year after the first game on November 21st, 1992. It didn't sell nearly as well as the first game, but it certainly was no disappointment for its time, selling an estimated 6 million copies and making around $400 million. It was also met with the same kind of praise, but as I just talked about, it didn't last forever. Part of the reason Sonic did so well was Sega's marketing. Their slogan, "Everything Nintendo don't," is pretty much engraved into everyone's mind from commercials and posters. And I wasn't even alive back then. Sega did the unthinkable with Sonic 1 and 2, and very few companies since have managed to pretty much overthrow the gaming market in such a way. Well, you wouldn't believe it, but you're at the end. That's right, it's a short episode this time. None of that 20-minute stuff, because I was looking at the YouTube statistics and no one actually watches the whole episode, or most people don't have the patience for a 20-minute video. If you do, thank you, but not everyone does, so I shortened this one down. You may have noticed I cut out the development section. That's not going to be gone forever, but it did help shorten this episode down, otherwise it would have been about half an hour, and that's really starting to push it. So, a short episode this time, and hopefully everyone's happy. I'm happy, even though this episode is the longest one to make so far. Don't know how that works, but some of us don't have time to work on videos all day. yeah, thank you so much for watching. If you're subscribed already, thank you. If you subscribed because of this video, thank you even more. And if you have not subscribed and you're not going to, thank you for watching anyway. And I'm really glad that you got to watch this video, even if you'll never hear from me again. So I'm saying this now. Hi. What else? Oh yeah, follow me on Twitter. That's a pretty cool place. You'll get to hear about me, and you'll be able to tell if I'm actually dead or I'm just not working on a video. So I haven't died yet. I'm still working on videos. I'm on school holidays at the moment, so that's cool. You know, funny story about school holidays actually. One time when Alright, just between you and me, I have a very strong feeling that hedgehogs are evil because we don't have any in Australia. We've only got echidnas. And echidnas, they're not as evil, but hedgehogs, you gotta watch out for them. Because I've seen some hedgehogs in my time, and I'm lucky to be alive today, so, you know, this is a risky episode to make.